Welcome to the channel, everybody. And now that March of the Machines has fully revealed, the next thing up is the pre-release event taking place April 14th. So if you're excited about this set, can't wait to get your hands on some cards, be sure to head out, support your local game stores, and buy a box. Hop in the tournament, and hopefully you win a couple matches and win some packs. If this is your first time attending a pre-release event, I will be sharing some tips and tricks in this video that might help you build a more cohesive and powerful deck and stick it to some of those veterans that are at your local game store. If you are a veteran and you want to see some of the new cards and some thoughts about the upcoming set, I have a link down below so you can skip ahead, and I'll share some combos, ideas, and my thoughts in general about the set now that it's completely revealed, and hopefully we can walk in there knowing exactly what to expect. So stick around, all that's to come. See you there.
Let's dive deeper into each component and provide examples to better understand its significance. I'm going to be using examples from March of the Machines to better familiarize yourselves with the set as release is right around the corner. First off, we're going to be talking about bombs. Bombs are potent cards that can single-handedly win games, and they're often rare and mythic rare cards with powerful abilities, high stats, or game-altering effects. Examples include the Planeswalker Wrenn and Realmbreaker, which grants lands the ability to tap for any color, and has loyalty abilities that will transform a land into a creature for the turn, or cause you to mill cards and give you the opportunity for some recursion. Other examples include formidable creatures like Gahalt and Maven, which generates a massive dinosaur or a swarm of vampires with every attack. Or there's new mechanics like the flip cards, such as Invasion of Fiora, which gives you a board wipe and then transforms into a pseudo-monarch effect. Next up, we're going to be talking about removal. Removal cards are designed to eliminate threats or disrupt opponent's strategies. Removal spells control the board by destroying or disabling opposing creatures, enchantments, or artifacts. Examples include Vanquish the Weak, which destroys target creature with power 3 or less. Sunfall, which exiles all creatures. Seal from Existence, which is a targeted exile until that enchantment leaves the battlefield. And Realmbreaker's Grasp, which is kind of like this set's pacifism, preventing the creature from attacking or blocking until it's removed from the battlefield. As well as damage-based spells like Stoke the Flame, which deals 4 damage to target creature or player. Prioritizing removal enables you to handle opponents' threats and maintain board control. Number 3 on the list is going to be Evasion. This means when creatures have abilities that make them difficult to interact with. These creatures often have abilities like Flying, Menace, or just straight up unblockable, making them a persistent threat that is tough for your opponent to deal with. Examples include Zergo and Ojutai, a creature with Flying and Haste, Caraxa and Kunaros, which is a creature with Menace, and selecting evasive creatures helps you deal consistent damage to your opponent, bypassing their defenses. Number 4 on the list is going to be Aggro. These are cost-effective creatures that deal damage swiftly. These are your 1-drops, your 2-drops that are like 2/2s or 1/1s. They come out fast and they deal a little bit of damage just to apply a little bit of pressure to your opponent. They don't have to do anything crazy, but just exist and swing. And last on the list, we have Recursion. Recursion cards grant the ability to reuse resources or return cards from your graveyard to your hand or the battlefield. Recursion offers long-term advantage by continuously providing access to vital spells or creatures, making it a challenge for opponents to deplete your resources. Examples include Deeproot Wayfinder, which returns a land from your graveyard to your battlefield, and Flitting Gorilla, which replaces a creature card from your graveyard back on top of your library upon death. Now that we've covered the components that go inside of a deck, let's start talking about tips and tricks to keep the deck balanced and cohesive. Because the last thing you want to do is end up with too many big creatures and not enough mana, or not enough creatures in your deck in general, and too many spells or sorceries. First things first, let's keep your mana base consistent. This reduces the risk of being unable to cast spells, and trying to include too many colors can lead to an inconsistent mana base, making it difficult to cast your spells in the first place. By focusing on 1 or 2 or maybe 3 colors, you'll ensure a more reliable mana base, enabling you to cast your spells efficiently. Following that, we're going to start talking about prioritizing a strong mana curve. Here, we're going to aim for a good mix of low, mid, and high cost cards to ensure you have plays throughout the entire game. A balanced curve allows you to use your mana efficiently and increases the likelihood of having the right cards at the right time. Ideally, you should have a higher number of low-cost cards, followed by a moderate amount of mid-cost cards and a smaller number of high-cost cards, forming a curve-like distribution. This keeps you from avoiding the issue of being flooded with mana or mana screwed. These are 2 common issues when it comes to playing Magic, and it can lead to a loss. Next up, we're going to talk about a creature to spell ratio. As a general rule, aim for 15 to 18 creature cards and 5 to 8 non-creature spells. This will balance out your 40-card deck. Creatures are the backbone of most Magic decks, as they supply pressure to your opponent and act as your primary win condition. Non-spell creatures, such as removal, combat tricks, and card draw, are essentials for supporting your creatures and maintaining control over the game. Striking the right balance ensures you have enough threats to pressure your opponent while also having the necessary support to protect and enhance your own creatures. Now, when you're looking for those 15 to 18 creature cards, be sure to look for synergies. Look for cards that complement each other and can create powerful combos. Synergies can come in the form of shared creature types, abilities that trigger off specific effects, or cards that directly benefit from each other's presences. For example, in March of the Machines, look for cards like Sculpted Perfection, which gives other Phyrexians +1/+1. This card synergizes well with other mechanics like Incubation, and we'll talk more about that later. It's time to put it to the test in matches against other players. Here are some game plan strategies and tips to help you excel in your games. First off, mulligan decisions and starting hand evaluation. Beginning each game by assessing your opening hand. Determine if you have sufficient lands or plays and a balanced mix of spells and creatures to warrant keeping the hand. Do not hesitate to mulligan if your hand lacks consistency or the required resources to execute your plan. Do not be afraid. You can mulligan. Do it if you have to. Once you've decided to keep your opening hand, let's start talking about identifying your role in the game. Determine whether you should play an aggressor or adopt a more controlling playstyle. Use the composition of your deck and the current board state as your judgment, and throughout the game, adjust your playstyle accordingly to maximize your chances of victory. If you're the aggressor, focus on applying pressure and forcing your opponent to react, while as a control player, prioritize maintaining board control and neutralizing your opponent's threats. Once you've identified your role in the game, start focusing on developing a strong board presence and maintaining tempo. Play your creatures and spells in an order that maximizes their impact on the game while disrupting your opponent's strategy. Balance between deploying threats and keeping resources in hand for future turns to react to your opponent's plays is crucial. Do not throw everything out onto the board at once unless you see the win con available. Once you've established your tempo in the match, be sure to play mindfully around your opponent's potential combat tricks and removal spells. Attack and block cautiously and attempt to bait out some of your opponent's tricks before you commit all of your valuable resources. If you're playing against an opponent with a blue deck, be sure to try and get that negate out before you drop that big card that you've been holding in your hand for the past 5 turns. End all be all of this flows directly into assessing and managing risks and adapting to your opponent's strategy. Beware of potential risks and make calculated decisions about when to take them, and weigh the potential benefits of a risky play against the potential consequences. Be sure to stay flexible and adapt your gameplay to counter your opponent's strategy, and if they're playing an aggressive deck, focus on stabilizing the board and preserve your life total. If they're playing a control deck, look for opportunities to capitalize on their vulnerabilities and apply pressure at key moments. Now, during our pre-release event, you'll play multiple matches against different opponents. To improve your chances of success, it's essential to adapt your deck between matches through sideboarding. Here are some tips on sideboarding and adjusting your deck in a sealed format. When you're playing in the sealed type of format, your sideboard consists of all the cards from your pre-release pack that you didn't include in your main deck. These cards can be swapped in and out between games within a match, allowing you to fine-tune your deck based on your opponent's strategy. Don't be afraid to change your deck. Always look for key vulnerabilities and chances to make it better. When you're building your deck, be sure to look for cards that you're going to be able to sideboard in to counter your opponent's strategy or even strengthen your own. So when you're building your deck, be sure to look for cards that destroy enchantments, cards that will destroy artifacts, or straight up just wipe the entire board and give you a chance to reset. Looking for cards to straight up reset the board state isn't the only thing you can do when you're sideboarding. You can adjust your mana base. If you feel like you're getting way too much mana, you are more than welcome to swap in another quick aggro card for a land so that you can increase the odds of getting more creature cards out into the battlefield and not feeling like you're swamped with lands. Or vice versa. If you feel like you're not getting enough lands, take out a creature or two and put some more lands in. Increase your mana pool and increase the odds of getting the mana you need to put down those creatures and spells when you need to.
Now that we've gone over the components and tips and tricks to building a deck in this sealed format, let's start diving into the specifics of March of the Machines. Let's talk 4 major mechanics inside of March of the Machines. Those being Incubate, Backup, Convoke, and the new battle cards that have been added to this set. First, let's talk Incubate. Incubate is when you create an artifact token that has X +1/+1 counters on it for the level of Incubate that created that token. You can pay 2 mana and convert that artifact into a Phyrexian artifact that is a 0/0, so all of its health and power comes from the +1/+1 counters. Next up, let's talk Backup. Backup allows you to put a +1/+1 counter on a fellow creature that is already out on the battlefield when the creature giving the backup ETBs. The benefit of this +1/+1 counter, it also gives some sort of ability, like flying, vigilance, and some of the other cards have a more detailed and convoluted ability that comes with their backup. Thirdly, we're going to talk Convoke. Convoke allows you to tap other creatures to pay for one of the colorless mana that the card requires to be casted. That's pretty much all it is. You can tap creatures for mana and cast cards. Pretty simple. Fourthly, we're going to talk about Battles. Battles is a new card inside of the set, as well as a new card to Magic the Gathering. When the battle enters the battlefield, it has some sort of effect on the current board state. It can destroy all creatures. It can cause you to create tokens. There's numerous of battles inside of the set, and they pretty much cover every single base. Now, a battle has X number of defense counters that you have to remove in order to get the battle to transform. Once it transforms, it could be a creature, a sorcery spell, or an instant. It's a pretty wide range of abilities across all of the cards that they put into this set. Now, there's another version of flip cards that are creatures that flip into sagas, and those are pretty much just high-level mythic creatures like Elenorn and Jin-Gitaxias. So, yeah, pretty fun, something to play around with. Now, before we get into deck building, let's set a little bit of precedent here. This video is designed to be focused on the likelihood of drawing these cards. I am not going to create lavish situations where I pull every single mythic that's possibly coming from this set to build the deck around for pre-release. I'm going to be focusing on some uncommon, common combinations that you are likely to find when you're opening packs and building decks. I will sprinkle in some rares and mythics because there is a chance that you might be able to pull these, but I want to focus on the likelihood and prepare you for the actual outcome that you will see when you open the pre-release box. Let's start diving into the mechanics and building decks around them. First off, I'm going to start taking a look at incubation. The colors to be on the lookout for here are blue, black, green, and white. Red has some incubation type cards built into them, but they're very few and far between. I'm thinking like 2 or 3 if I remember correctly. Now, using those color combinations, there are some good multicolor cards that you can use as support to tie everything together. Those cards can be found in black green, green blue, and white black, and obviously I'm going to be displaying some of them on the screen as we go through this. Now, remember when you're looking at incubation type decks, that incubation requires you to pay 2 in order to transform that creature. Now, there is one card that allows you to tap and transform a creature, but that is 1 per turn, unless you can find a way to untap that creature. So, be on the lookout for mana ramp. So, cards that allow you to search for basic lands, cards that allow you to put lands out onto the battlefield more than once per turn. Now we're going to talk about the mechanic backup. Now, this is a very interesting mechanic, and this is the first time that we're seeing it in Magic the Gathering, so I'm very excited to see where we can start squeezing some of these cards in outside of Sealed, but that's a different day for another video. Now, when I'm looking at backup specifically, there's a lot of red, black, white, and green in these colors. So, be on the lookout for those, and it looks like blue is not very prevalent in those colors. So again, that would be a support color. Now these counters work very well with other +1/+1 counters, because I've seen cards that trigger off of other creatures getting +1/+1 counters. So I'm going to kind of lump those creatures in with backup because they're all kind of synergizing together and working well together. Those will be displayed on the screen below. Now, I am leaning very heavily in comboing backup with green. There's a lot of +1/+1 counters inside of the green color, so I would almost recommend that if you're running backup to have green as a secondary color, if not primary. But that's just me. Take a look for yourself and see what you see. Alright, fourthly, we're going to talk Convoke. For me, this mechanic is a little weird, and I don't really see how it's going to fit into such a limited format, but where there's a will, there's a way. For this specific mechanic, white, blue, black, and red are the primary colors used in Convoke, so be on the lookout for those. Green doesn't have it all. Now, if you're going to be using this, I would almost say that you would need some sort of token generation in order to ramp the number of creatures that you can use for tappable mana. Those creatures include like Elspeth if you get lucky, Invasion of New Phyrexia, and this Monastery Monk. Other than those, finding creature token creation is very few and far between in this set. There is another card that is like a shark. Can't remember the name of it right now, but I'm sure I've put it on the screen. TLDR of this entire video. Be sure to pay attention to the components you're including inside of your deck. Be sure to watch your mana curve while you're building your deck. You want to make sure you're not adding too many large creatures when you need to add some smaller ones to get you going. Thirdly, be ready to sideboard in any destruction removal or alter the amount of mana you have as your mana base at any time, because an evolving deck, when you see your weaknesses, is a stronger deck. Going into March of the Machines specifically, our primary mechanics that we're watching for is Incubate, Backup, Invoke, and the new battle cards that have been added to this set. Using this information will help you build a better deck and hopefully stay informed and on the ready as to what to look out for. So if this video was any help to you, please hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe, and any thoughts, ideas, drop in the comment section down below. Help out your fellow Magic player. That is all. Hope to see you in the next one. Peace.